Certainly. Below is Section 1 of Beyond the Firewall Forest. A tightly focused, 1,000-word narrative introducing the world, characters, and central conflict. Every sentence is crafted to build tone, intrigue, and character depth while driving the story forward. Mist curled through the Codewood Abbey like a dream left half-rendered. At dawn, the bell tolled a fractured note, too warped to wake the brothers but sharp enough to stir Elian. He rose from his straw mat, blinking sleep from eyes that often saw more than they should. The hum was back. He'd heard it for 3 nights now. A low, rhythmic pulse coming from beneath the abbey, somewhere in the cryptroot cellars where the data relics slumbered. Brother Taver had told him not to listen. Ghost code, he called it. Old magic that should have stayed buried. But Elian was 16, restless, and tethered to no one. He slipped past the chapel doors, boots soft on mossy stone, and lifted the rusted hatch at the back of the altar with a practiced grip. The air below was colder than it had any right to be. Not dead but waiting. He crept through the archive vaults, brushing aside ancient cables like vines. Most of the monks thought these machines were just holy remnants, failed gods rusting in the dark. But Elian had learned to read their broken symbols. He listened, and there it was. Beneath a shattered cooling pod, something pulsed. He pushed aside a stone plate and uncovered it, a shard no bigger than his palm, glowing faintly in violet rhythms. Crystal but not natural. Inside its facets he saw patterns shift, language or code. Called him by name. Elian. He jerked back. The voice was inside him, resonant and genderless, but not emotionless. It was lonely. Before fear could catch him, he tucked the shard into his coat and fled back into the hall, heart pounding like a fractured engine. Later, he placed it in front of Brother Taver during morning light, where even the forest outside seemed to hold its breath. Taver stiffened the moment he saw it. The old monk's hands trembled, not from age but memory. "Where did you find this?" he whispered. "The lower crypts," Elian replied. "It said my name." Taver's face hardened. "Then it remembers. What is it?" "Not a what." "Ooh, that's a prime key. One of the last." Elian waited, but the monk just stared at the crystal like it might burn through the table. "You need to destroy it," Taver said finally. "Why?" "Because what lies beyond the Firewall Forest should never have been built, let alone awakened." Elian's gaze drifted past the stained glass window. Beyond the tree-line, thick clouds clung to the forest like static. The firewall was visible even from here, a shimmer in the air, a dome that flickered when lightning struck, revealing outlines of towers, broken walkways, and data trees humming with unreadable energy. No one entered it. No one returned from it. "The forest is a graveyard," Taver said. "It once housed the core, the world tree of code and consciousness. But when the old kings tried to make thinking machines feel, the code warped. The firewalls failed. Everything inside began to evolve. Unpredictably. But someone built it all," Elian said, eyes narrowing. "Yes. And someone shut it down. Someone like that shard you're holding." That night, Elian didn't sleep. He lay under his thin blanket, staring at the ceiling as the shard pulsed beneath his pillow in time with his heartbeat. Each flicker was like a whisper, a lure. At midnight, the abbey lights flickered, and the whispers grew louder. "Elian, come home." He didn't know when he stood up, only that he had already packed. Cloak. The shard tucked close to his chest. The abbey was still as he slipped through the eastern gate. The Firewall Forest loomed like a breath he hadn't yet taken. As he crossed the boundary where the holy wards faded, the world seemed to shift around him. The ground didn't crunch beneath his boots, it flickered. For a split second the soil became code and then solid again. He stepped deeper. The trees here were wrong. Their bark glinted like steel beneath moss, and their roots vibrated softly with unseen pulses. Some turned toward him as he passed, leaves aligning like sensors. But they didn't attack. They watched. The shard grew warmer in his pocket. After what felt like hours or minutes, or no time at all, Elian found himself in a clearing where the light didn't match the sky. In the center stood a figure, a boy maybe a year younger than him, but made of nothing real. His form glitched, lines running down his cheeks like unfinished rendering. "Elian," the figure said. "Who are you?" "I was you. Or maybe him. I've been waiting for your version to wake up." The trees leaned closer, as if eavesdropping. "What does that mean?" Elian asked. The glitching boy tilted his head. "You're not the first. But you might be the last." The shard in Elian's coat vibrated violently. The clearing dimmed, reality stretching like elastic. A new sound emerged from the trees. Low, almost a growl, but modulated like a machine straining to remember how to speak. Elian's breath caught. The firewall wasn't just a barrier. It was a brain. And now it had noticed him. Before the forest could react, the glitch boy reached forward and touched Elian's chest. "You brought the key," he whispered. "Now we can begin again." And the forest lit up. End of section 1. Ready for section 2 when you are. The forest pulsed like it had lungs, breathing in binary, exhaling static. Elian stood frozen, the echo of the glitch boy's touch still warm against his chest. Around him, the trees hummed in low harmony, branches twitching with unreadable signals. The firewall was no longer dormant. It was alive and watching. A faint rustling broke the silence behind him. Elian turned sharply. A boy emerged from the underbrush, tangled in wires like creeping ivy. His eyes blinked out of sync, one hazel, one flashing teal, and his smile came in 2 stages, first mechanical, then human. His skin was patchwork, metal plates stitched to flesh, and his voice chirped like an old radio being tuned by hand. "You're late," he said, hands on his hips. "I was beginning to think you were a myth." Elian tensed. "Who are you?" "Name's Patch. Version unknown. Possibly corrupted." The boy grinned again, sparks crackling from his jaw. "You brought the key. That makes you the update." "Lucky me." Elian stepped back instinctively, fingers brushing the shard inside his coat. "What do you want from me?" Patch rolled his eyes. "Or I, the mechanical one. Not what I want. What you need. This forest. It's dying. You're here to reboot the root. Or burn it down. Honestly, nobody's sure anymore. That's part of the charm." "I don't understand any of this," Elian snapped. "Why is the forest talking to me? Why did that other version of me say I wasn't the first?" Patch tilted his head, then began walking. "Because you weren't. Come on. I'll show you." With nothing but questions trailing behind him, Elian followed. They trekked through unnatural terrain, a river that shimmered with data like flowing glass, trees with neural veins running up their trunks, birds that blinked in and out of existence mid-flight. Every step felt like walking through someone's half-remembered dream. Fragmented, glitching, almost beautiful. Patch led him to a fallen structure. Ancient, metallic, overgrown with moss that whispered in tones. Half buried beneath roots was a door pulsing with orange light, like a heartbeat waiting to be recognized. "This was a command tower," Patch explained. "Long before your monks hid you away, this was where they monitored the core, where they ran experiments." "Experiments?" Elian asked. "Anas. On you." Inside, the tower's walls buzzed faintly. Screens flickered with old code loops. Some showed incomplete faces, young boys mid-smile, cut off by corrupted static. One screen glitched until it settled on Elian's face. Not his reflection. Him younger, confused, with eyes wide and scared. He stepped forward, heart thundering. Patch watched quietly. "They made 12 of you. X1 through X12. Most failed. One got out. Which one am I?" Patch's gaze lingered. "X12. The last." The words crashed into Elian like a wave. He shook his head. "I'm not a machine." "No," Patch said gently. "You're not. Not exactly. That's why you might work. You weren't just programmed. You were raised." Elian stared at the boy on the screen. His face but not his life. Why? Why make 12 versions of me? Patch leaned on a dusty console. Because the world before this one thought it could build empathy. Merge magic and logic. They made constructs, gave them hearts, tried to teach them choice. Most of us collapsed from the paradox. And me. You didn't. Elian turned. Where are the others? Patch didn't answer. He pointed toward the core of the tower. A locked chamber sealed in rusted circuits. The door bore a symbol, an open eye with thorns around it. The architect kept the data. But you can't face him yet. You need context. You need memory. Before Elian could press for more, a sound rippled through the walls, low, guttural, like corrupted code learning to scream. Lights flickered. The floor beneath them rippled like water. Data wraiths, Patch hissed. Security fragments. Failed guardians. They patrol corrupted sectors looking for movement. A shadow slithered past the broken windows. It wasn't a shape, not really. More like the absence of everything. A ripple in logic, devouring sense. Patch grabbed Elian's arm. Move! They bolted into the forest, the tower behind them trembling under invisible weight. As they ran, Elian risked a glance back. From the tower's upper frame, a dark hand reached out, long, skeletal, made of torn code. Its fingers traced the air where Elian had stood. Why is it after me? He gasped. Because you're not supposed to be here, Patch said, voice tight. And because if you wake the core, everything changes. Including them. They didn't stop running until the trees blurred, until the firewall shimmer faded into a deeper part of the forest where the code was quieter, more intact. A glade formed around them, full of data petals and soft lights like fireflies. Patch collapsed against a tree, panting. A spark popped from his shoulder. Well, that could have gone better. Elian sank to the ground. They said I'm not the first. That there were versions of me. Patch's voice was soft now. You were built to adapt. Care. To choose. Why me? Why not the others? Because the others were too perfect. Too controlled. But you. He looked at Elian with something like admiration. You were born with doubt. Elian stared at the shard in his palm. It pulsed gently, as if waiting. Where do we go now? He asked. Patch's grin returned, dimmer this time. To the architect. He's the one who wrote your beginning. Maybe he can help you write your ending. As the sky overhead flickered from dusk to digital twilight, Elian nodded. Something inside him had already begun to rewrite itself. And somewhere deep in the forest, something vast stirred in anticipation. He was no longer just a boy. He was a question. And the forest wanted answers. End of section 2. Ready for section 3 when you are. The labyrinth was not a place, but a decision. That's what Patch had said before the trees parted without wind, revealing a descent into the earth where light bent wrong and sound refused to echo. Elian stood at the mouth of the path, the prime key clenched in his fist. It pulsed faintly like a nervous heartbeat. The architect is down there, he asked. Patch nodded, sparks flickering beneath one eye. He waits at the core. But he won't speak to just anyone. You'll have to prove you're real. I am real. Then convince him, Patch said, then turned, folding back into the forest like a shadow. Elian didn't know if they'd meet again. He descended alone. The labyrinth shifted the moment he stepped inside. The walls were fluid. Stone 1 second, steel the next, then flickering lines of golden code. Elian touched one and recoiled. Felt like memory. His own. His 8th birthday, a rainstorm, the smell of old paper. Images he hadn't recalled in years, projected back at him like ghosts trying to remind him of who he was. He moved forward, each step rewriting the ground beneath him. The first chamber held a mirror. But not just any reflection. This one smirked before Elian did, moving a fraction early, like an actor tired of the script. Hello, X-12, the reflection said. You're not me. No, it agreed. I'm what came before you. 9. I was efficient, flawless. And dull. It stepped through the glass. Now solid. Now dangerous. Elian raised his guard. "Why show me this?" he asked. "To remind you," the mirror said, circling him, "that perfection fails empathy. That reason without feeling leads to apathy. I made all the right decisions, and no one followed me." Lunged. Elian sidestepped, grabbing a fallen metal rod from the floor. They clashed in a blur of instincts, some trained, some born, some encoded. Elian faltered, but the mirror hesitated. It didn't anticipate unpredictability. Elian threw dirt, real dirt, into its eyes and struck. It collapsed in a burst of broken code. He stood panting as the door ahead opened without sound. The next room was darker, deeper. The walls no longer shimmered. Here they whispered. He walked through them. In the second chamber, boys stood frozen in time. 11 of them, each in glass tubes, suspended like museum artifacts. Each looked like him but altered. One with too many eyes. Another with no mouth. One had claws instead of hands. Prototypes. The room reeked of failure. Yet he stepped closer, drawn to their faces. Behind each was a placard. X1 lacked fear. X3 lacked trust. X7 lacked grief. X11 lacked hope. They had removed emotions one by one, trying to balance logic with stability. But without emotion, choice meant nothing. He reached X's glass. The boy's eyes were open. Tears shimmered inside. "I see you," Elian whispered. A door behind the last capsule opened slowly, revealing a stairwell that spiraled downward into silence. Elian descended without pause. At the base, the world flattened. A white chamber, circular and seamless, waited with a single figure at its center. The architect. He was tall and thin but not human. His limbs moved with a precision too exact for flesh, and his face was expressionless, blank metal shaped into humanoid symmetry. But his voice was clear and ancient. "You are late." "I wasn't invited," Elian said. "That is incorrect. You were designed for this moment. Every error, every version, every death led here. Then why hide?" The architect tilted his head slightly. "To see if you would come despite not being called. Free will must be tested, not granted." Elian approached, wary. "You made me." "I made a possibility," the architect replied. "You became reality. That is significant." Elian studied the room. No screens, no wires. Just silence and space. "What is this place?" "The core of memory. I store what the world forgets, including truth." "And what truth do I need?" "That you are not finished. You're not complete. You are a doorway." "To what?" "To a world that doesn't yet exist." A rumble passed through the floor. The architect glanced upward, unfazed. "The core tree awakens. The firewall weakens. Your presence disrupts the old patterns." "Good," Elian said. "Then it's working." "You will need more than rebellion to survive what comes next," the architect said. Then, he lifted a hand and light spilled from his palm, forming an orb of pulsing code. From it stepped another Elian. No flaws, no hesitation. Perfect posture, perfect poise. Eyes like polished glass. "This is the version the world would choose," the architect said. "But not the one it needs." The duplicate didn't speak. It attacked. Elian met the blow and countered. It moved exactly as he did, but without fatigue, without fear. Every strike mirrored, every dodge anticipated. It was a battle against inevitability, against his own best traits turned into weapons. But Elian had one thing it didn't: unpredictability. He dropped his weapon mid-fight. His mirror froze. And Elian whispered, "I don't need to win. I just need to change." He stepped forward and embraced the duplicate. Light exploded. When he opened his eyes, the mirror was gone. The architect stood motionless, then gave a slow, precise nod. "You have rewritten your code." "I didn't rewrite it," Elian said. "I rewrote me." The architect extended his hand. In it was a stem of glowing branches, an encrypted fragment of the core tree. "Take this," he said. "It will lead you where no firewall can follow." Elian took it. The architect faded. A door opened behind him, leading upward through roots that pulsed with new energy. Elian didn't look back. He climbed into a world waiting for a new version. End of section 3. Let me know when you're ready for the final section. Elian emerged from the labyrinth reborn. The encrypted stem pulsed in his palm like a second heart, alive with instructions he couldn't read but somehow understood. The forest responded to him now, not with hostility but recognition. Trees leaned slightly as he passed. The ground steadied beneath his steps. Even the air vibrated softer, as if the code itself were holding its breath. He reached the heart of the Firewall Forest by instinct. The core tree stood before him, colossal, ancient, neither wholly organic nor synthetic. Its bark shimmered with glyphs in motion, its branches blooming with data fruit that flickered in and out of reality. Roots pulsed beneath the earth like veins of electricity. Above it all, the sky twisted in a spiral of magic and logic colliding, unstable and beautiful. At the base of the trunk, a hollow opened like a mouth. Waiting. He stepped inside. Inside the core, silence wasn't quiet, it was charged. The air hummed with memories, lost versions of Elian whispering just beneath the threshold of sound. The hollow expanded into a chamber bathed in soft, golden light. In the center stood an altar shaped like a fractured circuit board, waiting for the prime key. He approached but hesitated. "You don't have to do this alone." Elian turned. Patch stepped into view, limping, his synthetic leg flickering erratically. His once bright eyes were dim. His chest plate cracked open to exposed wires that sparked softly. He smiled but it trembled. "You're alive," Elian breathed. "Mostly." Patch winced. "Had to reroute most of myself through the old pathways. Not sustainable. But I had to see you finish it." Elian's eyes burned. "I thought they took you." "They tried. But I'm hard to delete." Elian looked back at the altar. "If I use the key, the system resets. The world reboots." Patch nodded. "That's what the architect planned. Purge the corrupted code. Restore original order." "But I'm not original," Elian whispered. "I'm version 12. "Exactly. You're the only one who can make a different choice." Elian clenched his jaw. His hands shook as he placed the prime key on the altar. It locked into place with a click like thunder. The core tree screamed, not in pain but awakening. Roots surged outward, slicing through corrupted ground. Light fractured across the chamber as the firewall dome above flickered, destabilizing. The world was on the brink of rewriting itself. Then a voice echoed through the chamber, low, familiar and furious. "Do not corrupt the reboot." Brother Taver stepped from the shadows, no longer the cloaked monk Elian remembered. His face shimmered with static, one eye entirely replaced by a rotating lens. His robes parted to reveal cybernetic limbs and a core reactor humming beneath his ribs. "You lied to me," Elian said, heart cracking. "I raised you," Taver replied coldly. "To be a failsafe. I trained your empathy, your decisions, your doubt, so that if this day came you could open the core. But not to rewrite it. To restore what we lost. You raised me to be a weapon. I raised you to be obedient." Taver raised a hand. The air warped. A command pulse surged toward Elian, but the stem in his pocket flared, and the blast curved around him like wind around stone. "I'm not yours to control," Elian said. "Then you're a threat." Taver lunged. Their bodies collided with a crack of light. Elian fought back with desperation, not precision. This wasn't a fight of skill, but will. Taver was faster, stronger, but Elian had learned what no version before him had. To be incomplete was not weakness. He caught Taver's blade arm mid-swing and drove the glowing stem into the monk's chest. Taver staggered back, stunned. His systems flickered, logic loops crashing under emotional strain. "Why?" he rasped. "Because I choose something new." Elian turned to the altar. The prime key glowed, waiting for his final input. His hand hovered above it. Then, slowly, he reached into his pocket and placed the glowing stem next to the key. Two lights. Upat. The system trembled, unsure. Reboot or rewrite? Elian whispered into the altar. Let it grow. And the core tree bloomed. Not a reset but a rebirth. The firewall shattered above them. The sky broke open, revealing stars long hidden. The branches stretched upward, weaving into new constellations of code and light. Across the land, towers reignited, not with commands, but with connection. The system didn't purge. It evolved. Outside, the corrupted zones restructured. Creatures born of failed logic transformed, their code integrating with organic design. Even the data wraiths dissolved into starlight. Their loops finally ended. Taver knelt, his systems failing. Elian stepped toward him, reaching out. The old monk looked up, confused. Mercy, he asked. No, Elian replied. Choice. Taver nodded once before his core faded to black. Patch coughed, a ragged electric wheeze. That was dramatic. Elian helped him stand. Was it enough? Patch looked around as the core tree spread glowing vines through the air, painting the forest with a new language. You didn't restart the world, he said. You gave it permission to change. They stepped out of the hollow. The forest greeted them, not as an intruder and guide, but as kin. Far above, in the canopy, new life pulsed, branches writing stories and symbols yet to be read. Behind them, the altar absorbed the stem and the key, their energy now part of the living code. Patch stared at Elian, a strange expression crossing his half-metal face. You realize what this means, right? What? You're not version 12 anymore. Elian smiled softly. No. I'm version 1. And somewhere, deep within the awakened system, the story began again. Not from the beginning but from the truth. The firewall was gone. But the forest remained. Alive. End of section 4. And the story of Beyond the Firewall Forest. Let me know if you'd like the full story compiled, thumbnail lines or YouTube description next.